we shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time. These words by T.S. Eliot remind us that growth is never a straight road. We circle, we spiral, and we come back to the same place that we started from, but this time with a new pair of eyes. I've started from and come back to many such places. I've dipped my toes in many waters. I've always been a multitasker. Engineering, social sciences, neuropsychology, business, art, entertainment, you name it. It is extremely exciting for me. But it also means that my attention is scattered in 10 different directions at once. I'm sure you must have felt it at some point of time in your life too. That feeling of having 100 different browser tabs open in your mind and you being unable to choose which one needs your attention the most. It feels like being a shapeless being trying to make sense of things that are seemingly in shape. I've molded myself into many different shapes, and I've discovered something about myself while doing so. I have discovered that my favorite shape to be in is a triangle. A plain old triangle. I've also been a part of a weird love triangle once, but that is not the story for today. You see, in geometry, a triangle is the simplest form of polygon that is structurally stable. 3 vertices make up a plane. Remove one vertex and the entire structure collapses. I believe that human evolution shows a similar pattern. We human beings have always needed at least 3 vertices to keep us together. But what exact vertices are those? Well, I do have a theory, and I discovered it through my own journey. I remember back when I was studying engineering, I went through a phase of severe depression. It wasn't about my grades, and it wasn't about my personal life. As a matter of fact, to this day, I do not know what it was about. But all that I know is that the love and the strength that my family and friends offered me, that is what kept me afloat. And with all that love and strength, I entered the world of storytelling. I started writing plays, films, books, poems, songs, everything that you can imagine that can be written and can be molded into words. I started writing and using creative writing as my form of expression. And through that journey of expression, I realized how important my shared social bonds were for me. You see, in life, it is not always necessary to give things out to the world. You should also be able to receive the love and the care that the world has to offer to you. And that is precisely why I believe that the first vertex of this triangle of evolution are the shared social bonds. But when we speak about this society, we ourselves are also a part of it, right? But who exactly are we? Who exactly are you? And who exactly am I? If we, each one of us, we are all the same, that would make us machines and not humans, right? And that is precisely why I believe that the second vertex of this triangle of evolution is the understanding of individual roots. And the third vertex that keeps these 2 vertices in balance is the steady pull of discovery. Discovery is what keeps people looking beyond what they already know. Discovery is what turns curiosity into progress. And with these 3 vertices all together, we can look beyond horizons. But you know what? It is extremely difficult for us to balance these 3 vertices all together. Sometimes we completely focus on ourselves and we forget that we are a part of society, and whatever we do in our life has a direct impact on that society. Sometimes we just throw ourselves into community service and we forget that we have our own individual identity. And sometimes we just go crazy behind innovation. But the very balancing act of these three vertices all together, that is what we need to adapt in order to evolve. Over the next 10 minutes, we will see how this pattern of evolution and adaptation repeats itself throughout the course of history, and how we can adapt to that pattern in order to evolve on a personal level. So, let us hop onto a hypothetical time machine. That's not nothing but it. Let us hop onto it and travel back in time by about 5 to 7 million years ago, when early humans evolved from apes. Unbelievable, right? It was that long ago. You see, it was only 3 million years ago, though, when we started using stone tools. And only about 1 million years ago, when we mastered fire. Now, if you observe closely in the triangle behind me, the stone tools and the fire are the results of that steady pull of discovery. We started using these tools as a bunch of people to cater for our individual needs. This particular age, we used to call it Stone Age, or we named it Stone Age. The age that came after this was called Bronze Age. About 11,000 years ago, we mastered farming and we started forming settlements. But it was only 3,000 years ago that we started using bronze tools. Yet another result of that steady pull of discovery. The age that came after this was called Medieval Age. I mean, there came a lot of ages between these, but the predominant one that came after Bronze Age was the Medieval Age. During this age, huge empires rose, and the individual rulers started using tools like religion, politics, and economics to rule over masses. Soon after, about 500 years ago, people started jumping on ships and setting sail across the oceans in search for new lands, new resources, and other people like them. They started using cultural exchange and trade as primary forms or primary tools. Soon after, an age came where back-to-back canon events occurred. Electricity, telegram, industrial revolution, aircrafts, communications, weapons, world wars, nuclear science, space science, every single thing that dramatically changed human history forever happened within the last 200 years. This particular age was called Age of Industrialization. And all of this fighting, all of this adapting, and all of this inventing brought us to where we are today. Today we have computers and smartphones sitting on our palms, and these tools are connecting individuals like you and me to people sitting across the globe. We call it globalization. And with the emerging tech like artificial intelligence, there's no telling where we are going next. But we can definitely tell that we are back in today. Now that we are back in today, let us jump out of our hypothetical time machine. Take a few steps back and look at the bigger picture. You will notice that this pattern is a repetitive pattern of collective consciousness, individualism, and the steady pull of discovery, the three vertices that I mentioned in the beginning of my talk. It is a triangular repetitive pattern. By the way, does anyone of you know what do we call a shape that infinitely repeats itself? Anyone? I hear crisps, but no answers. Okay. No worries. I'll tell it to you. That's what I'm... Oh, yeah. Sorry. Absolutely right. They call it a fractal. A fractal is a shape that infinitely repeats itself and contains infinite copies of itself. And an equilateral triangle that contains infinite copies of itself is called a Sierpinski triangle. Oh, it's already there. Now I believe that the pattern of human evolution can be directly superimposed on this Sierpinski triangle. And that is because evolution is a fractal shape of adaptation. We humans always invent things, always discover things, and use them to adapt in order to evolve. But have you ever noticed that there's one thing in common in this entire process? That thing is art. Art has always been there. May it be the cave paintings from Stone Ages, the bookkeeping or writing techniques from medieval and post-medieval ages, or may it be the chat GPT images that you might have created a couple of weeks ago. Art has always been there. Art is the only thread that connects all of these ages together. And art is what it has reconnected me with my own self. I remember back in 2018, one of my friends established a tech media agency. Naturally, I started overlooking the content operations for his business. I took charge of a team of around 8 technical writers who were extremely talented in what they do. We traveled across the globe. We partnered with tech conferences. We wrote about them, and we reached an audience of above 1 million people within a span of 8 months. That was extremely exciting for us. But what wasn't exciting was the money that we generated out of it. You see, we did not generate enough revenue to keep our own business afloat. In those days, Web3 or specifically blockchain technology was on rise. And we had identified a gap in the market while traveling across the globe. And the gap was the lack of formal education in blockchain space. So we had naturally decided to bootstrap our business from Techpedia to an edtech one, where we would educate different people. Surprisingly, all our teammates decided to take that leap of faith with us. Literally none of our teammates jumped the ship. So we started upskilling ourselves. We started building authority in that space by publishing a lot of academic research papers. Soon after, we started creating and producing a lot of learning curriculums and learning programs which spread across to over 300,000 people across the entire globe. We also got a chance to roll out scholarships worth $400,000 for women in tech. And we got to partner with huge names like Nas Academy by Nas Daily, and we got to partner with the likes of Stanford University's Women in Data Science initiative. Those were the literal exciting times for us because we could do the business and we could generate enough money out of it. Now, the reason I'm telling you this story is because this particular transition is when I had realized that my evolution also had a pattern to it. And that pattern was also a triangular pattern. It had 3 vertices to it. And that made me think, what if there indeed was a template that I can use over and over to grow and evolve whenever I need in my life? And so I came up with one. My template also looks like a triangle, and naturally it has 3 vertices to it. At the first vertex are my personal elements, like my lifestyle, my food habits, my health. At the second element, or the second vertex, we have my social elements, which is my family, my friends, and the business networks that I'm building. At the third one, I have the tools that I need to evolve, my diverse academics, my exposure to art, and my travels. And right in the middle of it is my writing, my form of expression, my art. Whatever I do in my life circles back to writing somehow. So, you can also build your own template like this. And whenever I feel like evolving in my life, I just try to balance these 3 vertices all together. And whenever I'm not able to do that, I turn to writing. I write my heart out, and that is how I find out all the answers to my questions. Remember, art has always been there, and that is precisely why it knows all the answers. You just need to ask right questions to it. And just like me, every single one of you can come up with your own fractal template of evolution. It doesn't need to be a triangle like mine. It can also be a square fractal or a pentagonal fractal. The possibilities are infinite, and so are you, my friends. And with this, I leave you with 4 lines that I wrote for you that might act as a secret sauce to build your own template of evolution. Our shape repeats infinitely, like a fractal hidden in every breath. The path towards our evolution becomes our win, and it all starts with a leap of faith. Thank you.